This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs, and my guest today on the program is Mr. Dan Pinn. Dan is the director of Catholic Youth, Young Adult, and Family Ministry for the Diocese of Wilmington. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's good to be back.
It's always good to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about Carlo Acutis.
That's right.
On the 27th of April, the Holy Father will canonize Carlo Acutis, and we're going to be talking a little bit about him today. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you and about your work at the CYM, Catholic Youth, Young Adult, and Family Ministry. Tell us a little bit about your department and your work.
Absolutely. So my office covers all of, as you mentioned, Catholic Youth, Young Adult, and Family Ministry. We cover the whole Diocese of Wilmington, serving the parishes, ministries, and schools who are serving the young people. So I see my role at the diocesan office, kind of a consulting resource guide. I bring in some national speakers, bands for stuff like the pilgrimage, which we just had. Mm-hmm. And we hope to serve the people who are actually boots on the ground with the young people in any way we can. If they need help putting together a program, if they want to guide, have some questions, I'm happy to come and give talks myself. But more often than not, it's working with the people who are actually doing the work in the parishes and schools and ministries.
Mm-hmm. So your job is to help the youth ministers and the priests and the pastors at the parish to better serve the young people.
Exactly. Between that and the large diocesan events that we run throughout the year, we try to balance everything out. I should also mention we have the sports program in my office as well,
right.
Which serves about almost 5,000 student athletes, mostly in the northern part of Delaware, trying to expand that as well through 3 seasons of sports.
Right.
So we reach them that way as well.
What are some of the sports that you coordinate?
The biggest ones are girls volleyball, basketball. We also have a large track program, cross-country program, boys volleyball, football, baseball, softball. I'm sure I'm missing something as well. But
I think flag football is kind of a new thing. Right?
We're trying to get that off the ground. We've had a couple seasons of that here and there, but it hasn't quite taken hold yet. I know as it grows nationally, it's definitely something that our sports coordinator, Don Tees, is looking into.
Yeah.
It's a great activity. NFL is doing a lot to promote that as well, and we'd love to be a part of that.
I wish they had that when I was a kid because, I'm not built for regular football.
Sure. Me neither, yeah. I still did it, but it didn't work out for me.
As you mentioned, recently we had the youth pilgrimage, which takes place every year on the Saturday before Palm Sunday. And that just happened. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a great success this year. As many people know, the pilgrimage has been going on here for a long time. Bishop Malooly brought it when he joined the diocese many years ago, and Bishop Koenig's continued it, something he's very excited about, and we're very grateful for that. We had a little dip, of course, during the COVID years. We couldn't have large gatherings, but we're kind of back now, I think, and it was a great event. We had over 500 people all together at the pilgrimage this year, and the weather held out for us. We made it to all our stops, and it seemed like people had a really good time.
What's the purpose of that?
So a pilgrimage, like any pilgrimage, is designed to draw the faithful into a closer experience of the faith with Jesus, especially during Lent, during Palm Sunday as we lead up to Holy Week. We have many activities throughout the day that help people to enter into this really holy time of year. For example, we pray at St. Francis Hospital, praying for the sick, offer a litany for them, and we have reconciliation at St. Anthony's, followed by a live Stations of the Cross at Padua Academy, Eucharistic adoration at St. Paul's in Wilmington, and concluding with the Palm Sunday liturgy up at St. Elizabeth's, where we also start the pilgrimage. So putting all those together gives people a whole day of just really all the Lenten, all the faith experiences, and hopefully that sets them up as we get ready for Holy Week.
It's great, and you have had kids and families from all across the diocese.
Absolutely, yeah. This is it is our largest event that we run, and we're very blessed to be able to bring people all the way up from every corner of the diocese. I'm so grateful for all the people in the parishes who send buses, who get groups together. I think our largest group this year had 160-something people on a couple buses. But every family that joins us is a blessing to us. So whether it's one car full or 2 buses full, we're happy to have them. And I also really want to thank all the priests who come and hear confessions that day, because as you might imagine, with 500 people, in one church, that could be a long time if we didn't have the help, especially since so many people take advantage of that sacrament during the pilgrimage.
That's terrific. So what else is new at CYM? What am I missing?
Not too much right now. We have a couple of exciting things coming up, coming down the pike a little bit. I've been working with Marathon Youth Ministries, which is out of Baltimore, to help serve some of the youth ministers in our diocese with some professional development and some guidance and coaching. It's been a great resource for them, and we're going to continue that relationship. That's more for the adult side of faith formation and leadership in the parishes. But the next exciting thing, I think, coming up next year is the Damascus Summer Camp is based in Ohio. They've had other camps, I think, in Minnesota, and they're opening one in Maryland in 2026. So I've been working with them, and they've been talking with Bishop Koenig about kind of advertising and expanding that. I really love their mission, giving a great, fun adventure camp for youth ages 6th through 12th grade. But also really powerful and authentic faith experience. They have a lot of great stories of transforming young people's lives, growing them in the faith and leadership. So I'm really happy to have a closer camp than Ohio to try to get our people to coming in 2026.
Where will it be?
It'll be in Emmitsburg, Maryland.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
My old stomping grounds.
There you go.
That's
Not
terrific.
too far, much closer a drive than Ohio.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
Sure.
It's an easy couple of hours, and you're there. Yeah, and it's beautiful up there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion today, on April the 27th, the church will have a brand new saint, Carlo Acutis. In case our listeners or viewers aren't familiar with Carlo, who was he?
Absolutely. So Carlo is, or will be, the first millennial saint that our church recognizes officially. He was born in 1991, actually born in London, but lived most of his life in Italy. And since he was born so recently, a lot of his experiences growing up are more kind of relatable to a lot of young people today as well. But he lived in, like I said, in Italy, and really developed a love for his faith at a very, very early age, which was surprising, I think, to his family, who really were kind of the Creasters, the Christmas and Easter and sacraments kind of churchgoers. But from a very young age, Carlo developed this love for the Eucharist particularly, and actually brought his family, especially his mother, back to the faith through his witness to the faith. One of the most powerful things about Carlo, of course, is that he was diagnosed with leukemia when he was only 15 years old, and was actually died from that disease. It's very close to my own heart, given my own son's experience with that same disease, and praise God, my son's okay. And Carlo's witness has obviously touched millions of lives. I think the church is very right, of course, in recognizing Carlo because of his witness through all his sufferings and just the amazing work that he did in his short life. It's a very powerful, powerful witness.
I think you said that you are at the same age, or you were born around the same time as Carlo, correct?
Pretty close. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's a little bit older than me. Yep.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah. That is amazing to have someone who has had the same type of experiences that kids nowadays have, or people nowadays have, and they can identify with it.
For sure. Yeah, well, it's really cool when you look at Carlo's life and all that's been coming out, obviously with his canonization very imminent. We have videos of him, we have his voice, we have his words, his writing. He's the first saint, I think, to wear Nikes. That is one of his claims to fame, is in his tomb in Italy. He's buried in his casual clothes that he loved to be in, which is a tracksuit and Nikes. He played PlayStation. He had a dog. He loved soccer, went to school, did everything that kids still do nowadays. Now, of course, when he played PlayStation, it was the first PlayStation. Right. Now we got a few more iterations of that since then. But video games and the internet and social media were all part of his life.
Yeah. I wonder if JP2 ever wore Nikes. Well, maybe not.
Well, he did like to hike, so I'm sure he probably had some sort of sporty outfit somewhere in there.
Sure. So one of the things that Carlo is famous for is Eucharistic miracles and the promotion of Eucharistic miracles. What are Eucharistic miracles, and what was Carlo's tie to them?
Sure, absolutely. So the church's doctrine, obviously, is that the transubstantiation happens at every single Mass, is that the bread and wine truly become the true presence, the body and blood, soul and divinity of Jesus Christ. And when we're at most of our masses, it still looks like bread and tastes like bread and looks like wine and tastes like wine. But every so often in the history of the church, there's been these miracles happen that are these outward signs of the bread and the wine truly become flesh and blood in a real scientific way. They're no longer the accidents of bread and wine, they actually become flesh and blood. The church has recognized, I believe, about 120 of these miracles throughout history, various types and various forms. Sometimes the image of Christ will appear on the host. Sometimes the host itself will bleed. And all of these outward signs are really intended, the church believes, by Christ to strengthen the faith of those who already believe and to draw more people into the faith and hopefully give the faithful a chance to contemplate the real mystery and miracle that happens every single Mass through these outward, extraordinary signs. One of the most famous Eucharistic miracles in modern times, of course, was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, when Pope Francis was still the Archbishop there at the time. Back in 1996, there was a host that was discarded after Mass. The priests found it and, as is the appropriate practice, put it in a glass of water and put it in a tabernacle to dissolve, and then the water is poured back through the sacrarium or out into the earth as an appropriate, respectful way to take care of a discarded Eucharist. When the pastor went back a few days later, however, the host was not dissolved. It actually had become some sort of, it looked bloody, it looked fleshy, and it was still there in the water, which would not happen if it was just still the accidents of the wheat that the host is normally made out of before it's consecrated. And so he notified the Archbishop Bergoglio at the time, who instigated this really powerful scientific investigation, collected a lot of data, a lot of really good information about what had actually happened, not to prove that anything was necessarily true, but also to show, let's take a look at this. We have the science now, as we haven't had through much of church history. And actually, for me, one of the most powerful examples of that was a small sample of the host was sent very respectfully, but anonymously, and not anonymously, but without any describing details, to a lab in New York City to analyze and to see what is this material. And that lab actually determined it was tissue from a human heart. I mean, not just tissue from a human heart, but tissue that had been taken from a living human heart. And not just tissue that had been taken from a living human heart, but one that had been abused and beaten and put under extreme trauma. Of course, the church recognizes that would be the heart of Christ during the Passion, during the crucifixion. And so this host that had been discarded was then miraculously transformed into a real piece of flesh and blood of Christ, and that was scientifically verifiable. So stories like that, that happened when Carlo was about 5 years old, and stories like that captivated his attention, his curiosity. And as he grew and the internet became more of a powerful tool in our world, he realized it was this great opportunity for evangelization. So he started taking out all these books on coding and building websites and doing research online, back when it was a little bit harder than pulling your phone out of your pocket.
Right.
And he developed this database online that was as many Eucharistic miracles as he could find from countries all over the world. That database is actually still active. The website's still active, and his work is still present that we can see. But he really wanted to share his own devotion to the Eucharist through these powerful miracles, and using the tools of the time, which was the internet and research and online communication.
That would have been what years? Early.
It would be the early 2000s at that point. Yep.
Yeah. That's a big job for a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old to do that. It's
for
that's
sure
amazing.
Those of us who remember the internet in the early 2000s is not the same as it is today. So to build it from scratch is really took a lot of effort.
Yeah. My guest today on Catholic Forum is Dan Pinn. He is the director of the Office for Youth, Young Adult, and Family Ministry for the Diocese of Wilmington, and we're talking about Carlo Acutis, who on April 27th will be the first millennial saint, the first canonized saint who was born as a millennial. in addition to being dedicated to the Eucharist and putting all this work into spreading the word of Eucharistic miracles, Carlo was also known for his dedication and helping of the poor, which is amazing for a young teenager. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, for sure. So Carlo recognized early on in his life that if he was going to live this faith that he was so passionate about and loved his faith, loved the Eucharist, it meant more than just going to church and praying, which is, of course, he did every single day. But that lived experience of the faith really transformed his school years into something that he was able to witness mostly to the kids who were being picked on or shunned in his class. Normal childhood experiences of growing up, teasing and bullying were still unfortunate realities. But he realized that as a faithful Catholic, there was something he needed to do about that. And so he had this great courage as a young man or a preteen and a teenager to stand up for those who couldn't speak for themselves for any variety of reasons. So his faith really informed everything he did in every interaction. That one of his famous philosophies was to not waste a single moment of his entire life. So every chance he got to help someone or to stand up for someone or to share the faith, he took it.
And he also did some outreach to the poor, correct? Is that part of his ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the church and through his getting more involved in his faith, the area where he lived in Milan, Italy, like most major cities, had areas of more wealth and areas where there's less wealth. And when he was able to provide for anybody who didn't have food or didn't have clothing, whatever his limited resources were as a teenager, as most teenagers know, he would do that. And he would also spend time serving the poor through the ministries of his parish and outreach to those in need.
How old was Carlo when he passed?
He was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was
in 2006.
2006.
Yep.
What else can you tell us about Carlo? What are we missing?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people might ask in the whole canonization process, which of course you can definitely do research online to see that whole process, but what were the miracles that led to Carlo's canonization himself? And those took place pretty recently. A lot of times we think of miracles as happening many, many years ago when the world was a holier place. But obviously, as Carlo's research shows, they still happen today. And because of his canonization process, we're able to recognize these, especially these two miracles. The first that opened the cause for his canonization was the healing of a Brazilian boy's pancreas. Had a pancreatic disease that doctors couldn't do anything about. And his parents asked Carlo to intercede for him specifically. That was back in 2020. And then what cleared the way for his canonization this year was the recovery of a Costa Rican woman who had suffered a motorcycle accident, I believe, and had a brain hemorrhage. Very, very serious injury. Again, not much the doctors could do about it, but through Carlo's intercession, she was miraculously healed. So those are the two miracles that have cleared the way for us to be able to call him saint in just a few weeks.
Yeah, and that's amazing because the church doesn't take these things lightly. I mean, they investigate them and go back to the doctors and take a look at X-rays and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
To really make sure that this is what has happened.
Yeah, and just like modern Eucharistic miracles, there's a huge vetting process that goes into any of these that takes into account both the witnesses of the faithful, but also scientific and objective, non-faith-based reasoning to confirm these miracles.
Are you going to watch the canonization?
I sure will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What? I guess that'll be kind of thrilling for anyone to watch. Yeah.
Definitely. And like we mentioned earlier, Carlo has a huge following among young people because he is a young person himself.
Right.
He shares so many experiences with people of that age range of young teenagers all the way through young adulthood that is such a relatable witness. So I think seeing that come to reality and having a saint where you can watch videos of him. Obviously, we have videos of several saints, including St. John Paul II.
Right.
But I don't think there's any, like we said, none in Nikes so far.
Right. Dan, how can our listeners get more information about Carlo Acutis and his work? And how can we get more information about about your work at the Office of Youth, Young Adult, and Family Ministry?
Definitely. So all of Carlo's work is still active on his website, as we mentioned. If you go to carloacutis.org, that would be the main landing page for his whole work, and they have links to the actual Eucharistic Miracles exhibit and some news updates about his canonization process, his bio, and things like that. That would be carloacutis.org, just one word. My website is at the diocese is cdowcym.org, and we have all of our events posted there and some other news releases, resources, and things like that.
Great. Well, Dan, thanks so much for being with us today on Catholic Forum. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully, Blessed Carlo Acutis, soon to be Saint Carlo Acutis, will pray for us.
Absolutely. We can pray that. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thanks, Dan.